Fabi, I don't think I've seen on his body language that he's trying to focus on this position, but it's so hard to really focus what to be playing. He knows it exactly that he has to pull out some magic, because what was slipped out of his hand previously just minutes ago, how resilient is he? And he doesn't play with the best opponent in a must-win situation with the black pieces. We know that it's not so easy to play with white either in a freestyle position, and it's not the simplest with white. At the same time, we've seen Magnus' smile after the game. He knows exactly. It's kind of embarrassing position what he had. He won, but of course, that's how sport is. If you get your chances, you grab it, no matter how strangely lost position you had. And I give it back to you.
Let's go.
Thank you so very much, Judith and Peter, as we head into what could potentially be the final round of the 2026 FIDE Freestyle Chess World Championship. I think resilience is the perfect word for what Fabiano will have to show in his matchup against Magnus Carlsen if he wants to retain a chance at that title crown.
I think everyone watching right now is rooting for Fabiano Caruana after what just happened. That was a gut punch for Fabi. Unbelievable. You know, Magnus not just surviving in that last round, but stealing an entire point. Now a draw away from becoming world champion.
Wow, one last shot for Fabiano Caruana. Magnus does Magnus things again, spending some time as early as move 1. Interestingly, the other board has entered that variation that Peter about E4, F5. If Magnus looks up at the screen, he might know what Fabiano has in mind now in that variation. Yeah, body language tells the whole story here. Fabiano looking away, trying desperately to stay composed, but the whole of that pre-game discussion, you could see it on his face. You could see the regret.
Looking absolutely dejected in this moment and trying to summon up whatever will to fight he has left in his body. Still awaiting Magnus's first move. Let's go to the 2 board, because as you said, we've at least seen the first move from each side come out onto the board in Nodebek Auditorova versus Vincent Keimer, and immediately a question is asked as we have those 2 pawns, the E pawn and the F pawn, staring at each other now across the board.
This is where Peter's point about the players discussing pre-game. I mean, it's information that Magnus gets now. He knows that Fabiano and Vincent Keimer have been discussing this E5, this F5 move. He can even wait here to see what happens on that board, to see how the opening concludes, or to see the decisions made, whether he approves or not. Magnus hasn't once looked up at the screen, though, so he is locked in, trying to focus, trying to pick how to make the game as safe as possible.
Yeah, because I think somewhere he realizes that every time there has been an imbalance, regardless of the scoreline, Fabi has been the better player in those kind of complicated positions. And maybe Fabi has to hope for that. But for me, the biggest takeaway from the pre-game analysis was really just listening to Fabi. You could hear it in his voice. It was actually...
Whoa. What's that? I just built a budgeting app in Base 44. Guys, Nina just built an app.
Nina again. Big moment. Symmetry, as you mentioned, on the other board. Nodebek already with a question mark move. I would say that's maybe a bit harsh. It looks like a very safe way of avoiding any of those gambits that Peter and Judith showed. Just keeps the center. Nodebek's in the same exact situation as Magnus. It was funny to see how the 2 teams, the white team just needing safety, just needing a draw, the black team needing the wins. How that affected their discussions, and I can't blame Nodebek for that move. Just keeping things safe and solid.
Yeah, I'm not giving the computer that much credit. It just desperately wants you to snap up that pawn. Otherwise, it would call anything else a question mark move.
Yeah, and Magnus, in the meantime, on the other board, the left board, does open up his light squared bishop by just pushing a pawn. Very safe. I think that's the name of the game for Magnus. He doesn't want any more fireworks, even if he survived somehow miraculously. He doesn't want that type of position.
And that's the thing. When we talk about players surviving, we talk about them escaping with a draw. Magnus was the one who delivered a checkmate on Fabi in that last game. If we're not able to get over it, I don't know how Fabi is doing it, but he has to find it in himself to make it happen. His last game.
That's exactly right. This is your last chance, at least this year, when it comes to freestyle chess and a world championship title.
Yeah, the only time I can remember Magnus being pegged back in a knockout match one-on-one, especially with this type of stakes, it was a couple of years ago at the World Blitz against Jan Nepomniachtchi. He was 2 points up, froze a bit, lost 2 games in a row. Eventually, they ended up controversially sharing the title.
Yeah.
But yeah, nearly never happened. He's a great front runner because he has that different gear. He knows when to kind of take the risk out and just lock it down, go into a quieter position, especially with white.
And how do you get your head around that even with a winning position against Magnus, you're the one who's unsafe?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, you can read it all over Fabi's face.
All right, the first threat of the game, the knight and the bishop combining, attacking the f5 pawn. Fabi, how do you defend it? He chooses the pawn that will not block his own bishop. Makes a lot of sense. Magnus now strikes in the center, wanting to get his queen out.
Fabi's playing fast.
Yeah, fast, but is it good?
Yeah, change up in strategy. In the earlier games, we saw both players spending long amounts of time trying to strategize, trying to come up with ideas. Here, Magnus has got step one of what you normally want in freestyle chess. That is a quick exchange in the center, open lines for your pieces. If he gets one more move, Magnus clamps it down, maybe by putting a pawn in the center, maybe by cementing this pawn as well. Then it's a full grip. Hard to imagine anything going too wrong for white.
Just looks like a very different Fabi on the screen right now.
Mm-hmm. His pawn to a5 move as well, like in general terms, useful. But here, hard to imagine it playing too much of an effect. The pawn marching down the board. That just is so slow here. White is so far ahead in development by the time that pawn ever touches anything.
You know, you pointed out the move d4 by Magnus. I think he's also eyeing the bishop to take that square, the central square as well, attacking the knight. And guess what, David? You put that knight on f7, the rook on f8 suddenly gets trapped. So it might be a threat that you need to watch out for.
And just to show that, this is not happening on the board yet, but just to show Tanya's idea. Whoops. Trapped pieces.
Freestyle chess.
Exactly. Smothered rook. And yeah, that's definitely something for Fabiano to ponder. I think his a5 move just too rushed and already struggling to find active moves.
Struggles all around. And it all comes down to what we just witnessed. I mean, when we went on a break, you know, before the start of it, everyone in the studio was talking about this, how we've just never seen anything like this. We've seen Magnus survive plenty, but not that. Not against a player like Fabiano Caruana.
Yeah, it's so outside the pale. Right? It just would not be able to think up a scenario like that in most cases.
Yeah, almost unthinkable. But Fabiano does make a move. He gets his knight out of the corner. So if the white bishop does step into the center to try and create that threat, black's knight can continue moving. And yeah, maybe the other knight can also hit the bishop, defend some squares. But the move we mentioned, pawn to d4, builds a nice pawn chain, builds a bind. Not quite the Maroczy bind, this time on dark squares, but putting everything on those dark squares means it's almost impossible for Fabiano to break out all pieces on the board. Fabi is the one cramped and struggling.
All comes down to that pawn move on the flank. Maybe just a little bit too late to complete development. And sometimes I just think, David, that, you know, players, great players, fantastic players, the likes of Hikaru, of Fabiano Caruana, of Jan Nepomniachtchi, were they just unlucky to be in the generation of Magnus Carlsen?
Yeah, they're just unlucky in individual games as well. Like, winning that first title is the hardest. Magnus has said it himself in 2013 against Anand. I mean, firstly, he nearly didn't win the Candidates Magnus. He lost in the last round. He only made it through on tie breaks. Luck fell in his favor. Against Anand, he was so nervous. Anand was maybe more nervous, though, and he broke through. Without that, he says it would have been a real scrap. There were so many strong players around that time of the same generation. Magnus just happened to get those lucky breaks, and that's when his era of dominance began.
Yeah, and his colleagues, you know, each one of them a worthy world champion, but just somehow could never do it with Magnus's domination taking over.
Yeah, could have been so different. 2018, Fabi so close, had winning positions in classical against Magnus, couldn't get it done, and fell in the rapid tie breaks. Imagine history would have been so different if Magnus had lost the title in the match. Also slightly fortunate against Karyakin.
That was the big one.
Yeah, but it's just that final step, the final nail in the coffin. When you have these winning positions, that's the hardest part.
And already so early on into this fourth game, just struggling to find a pathway forward.
What to do?
This game has little to do with what we see being played out, but more to do with what has happened already in their game 3. The question, has Fabi recovered? Can he find it in himself to continue to find a way to fight? Magnus just keeps bringing the pieces out, right? Queen beautifully placed. The knights will not stop there. Jump even forward given the opportunity. G4, F5, D4. Looking good for white.
Light squared bishop can slot up just in front of the king, open an avenue for the rook to get involved.
I like that too. White will complete development. Castle within a couple of moves, and everything is playing. The queen and bishop, you don't even need to move them. They're long-range pieces. Fabiano, what to do with his knights, first of all. If this knight ever moves, it's just going to get hit very quickly by advancing white pawn. Bishop, if it moves, will just get blocked by a pawn chain.
And you got to get that knight on the F-file out of the way of both the rook and the bishop.
Nice.
Already a tough position for Fabiano.
Yeah, and this last... wow, he continues to push the a-pawn, failing to find a better way forward.
Well, Mags,
it's the sign of things to come.
Yep, that a-pawn could step one square further forward, but Magnus will bypass that pawn and just say, okay, you've spent 3 moves on that while I've completed my development.
Or do you just ignore it? You just continue with development and say, you know what, get that pawn forward. I like that idea. Get the bishop out, get your castle, bypass it when it comes on, and say, I don't even care, literally don't even care.
Yeah, or D4, right? We've been talking about that. Just take more control of the center.
Yeah, pawn chains are always strong in freestyle chess. It's always a fight of kind of eroding the opponent's pawn chains early on, and I don't see Fabi breaking that chain. Maybe he'll hit the base, but the pawns will just continue advancing. The body language again, you can see it. It's so visible and so understandable.
If Fabi manages to get this done, if somehow he manages to make his chance, it would be the most heroic thing I've seen in the chess world ever.
What a comeback that would be, and what a tiebreak it would set us up for between the two of them. You have to imagine that would be reinvigorating, to say the least.
An underdog story, we all love it, but this feels like the ultimate test, the ultimate Everest that he needs to climb.
And the underdog story was playing out so well, just until a few moments ago. You know, everything from the start. A first round confident hold, a second round pushing, position of strength, eventually ends in a draw. The third round crushing and killing Magnus.
And there we go. Bishop comes out, just as James predicted. The white king can castle if it needs to, or stay where it is. The white rook will slot on over to the center. But more importantly, it just throws the ball back in Fabiano's court, and still difficult to know where the black pieces are developing to.
Yeah, so Magnus Carlsen spoiled for choice. He goes for just one of his many good options there in terms of development for the pieces. We'll come back to check in on our World Championship final here in just a moment, but we do want to check in on our third place bout between Nodirbek Abdusattorov and Vincent Keimer. First, stepping away to our Make.com match metrics. Taking a look at heart rates, of course, only 4 players in play, so only heart rates of those 4 players are being tracked. Nodirbek, the only one in the triple digits. He has the edge against Keimer, but needs to bring it home here with a draw or better. And then, of course, same thing for Magnus Carlsen. You can see the accuracy slipping a little bit on that third place match. So as we come out of this, maybe we can dive into a bit of why.
Let's do it. We have 2 real fighters, Vincent Keimer, Nodirbek Abdusattorov. Of course, Nodirbek only needs a draw. He has the white pieces, just like Magnus. And we've had a lot of pawn moves here. It's only move 7. Very quick action replay, how we got here. E4 met by F5, and it was clear earlier in the pre-game discussions, a capture would have been met by a real gambit, allowing the black knight to come out. Strong activity with the knight, black occupying the center in due course. Nodirbek said, no fun for you, pawn to F3. Black advanced, a sign that Vincent is really ambitious. He wants to prevent this knight jumping forward, and he also wants to keep as many pieces on the board as possible. But as we catch up, not quite the most accurate moves maybe from Vincent Keimer. And it's one of those pawn structures where white holds the key. White can take at will. I don't think black really necessarily wants to yet. And this time, as opposed to Fabiano's pawn push, I quite like this idea because it somehow just connects with the bishop. The black piece is yet to really develop. And okay, it's going to be a long game. I think that's the plus side for Vincent Keimer here. Hard to imagine any quick exchanges and quick liquidation.
Yeah, at the very least, he feels a little less trapped on his side of the board, right? Recognizing the computer even gives a slightly better edge to Nodirbek than Magnus Carlsen has on their board. At least visually, this black position is more appealing than Fabi's, if I had to pick which black position to play.
100%. Full of potential as well long term. If the knight ever moves out the way, then black can start a pawn avalanche. And very, very nice long-term chances. But yeah, maybe for now, the pawn center for white, giving the slight preference.
And maybe that flank pawn is about to move one step forward, forcing a decision by Vincent, putting pressure on that B pawn. The one thing I've noticed about Vincent in this tournament, which has been different from his performance in last season's Grand Slam tour, has been that his handling of the opening almost seemed flawless in the previous season. But somehow this time, it just feels like he's getting into trouble very early on, not finding those right spots for his pieces with as much ease as he was doing earlier in the tour last season. And right now, Notterbeck also going with a move that's been given a question mark. But a very natural move. You get your pieces out. Doesn't rush with A6 just yet.
Yeah, I think not a bad move necessarily, but just to go back very quickly, the computer was preferring to use the square for a pawn, just to cement the white center here. That's a nice pawn structure. Nice temple there, built by the white pawns.
I think my confusion with this knight move is just where's it going next?
That's a very good question.
Right. I've blockaded my own pawn. I don't really have any other good squares to jump to. Sure, maybe I could retreat it back to E2, but even then, there's no space on the right-hand side of the board for me to end up. So it's just kind of a long journey, and maybe giving some time, some tempo back to Keimer here to catch up in development.
Yeah, not a bad move in itself, but yeah, yet to be revealed as part of a bigger plan. And,
Would that... Sorry, David, go on.
I was just going to say, Vincent now, he's going to be looking to do the same, what to do with his knight.
Would there be a world that this last move could hint at Notterbeck wanting to push that D pawn forward and asking for a decision in front of the pawn that's ahead of Black's king on C6? You get D5. If you go C5, you're weakening the B5 square as well, with A6 coming in. A lot of play on the light squares. Could this be on Notterbeck's radar after the last move?
Okay, I think we found the plan. Pawn to D5, and not just because it looks nice and pretty gaining space, but Tanya, you read my mind.
That's the only reason you like it. It might be a blunder on the board.
You fooled me. You had me at D5.
It's a man with a single focus, finding Connect 4 in life.
And I mean, that means Black could consider taking this pawn off the board, creating a nice outpost in the center for the knight. The other thing I might consider is bringing the knight forward and provoking, especially in a must-win situation, saying, okay, you can come forward and I'll try and step into the center. The problem is, this is quite high risk. If the knight isn't strong, it also could find itself trapped. Yeah. And we see a decision from Vincent. He brings his bishop out, keeping the tension. At least his bishop will be outside the pawn chain if white does step forward.
Yeah, you don't get your bishop killed behind that pawn. And now Notterbeck switching gears. He does improve the position of the queen.
Given a miss there. Maybe it was time to step forward, Tanya, as you were saying there. And okay, I'm predicting a long game here, a nervy battle in the race for third place.
All right, well, coming off of David's prediction, I'm going to bring our legends in because we have a legends alert over at the Make.com deep dive desk due to Polgar Peter Letko. Heading into this final round, the pressure's on for Vincent Keimer and Fabiano Caruana. What would you like to dive into?
Well, exactly that this is the last game, right? And both of them are in a must-win situation. Vincent just as much as Fabiano. Fabiano is in ruins, as we see the body language also when we see the cameras. At the same time, of course, they are champions. So he wants to bounce back. He wants to show his resilience, though it is an impossible mission for him. But still, let's dive in just a little bit to both games. Maybe start Keimer's game first. Why actually they are not looking for the best moves? Because they have to somehow unbalance the game in order to provoke the opponent that come, make mistakes, try to make a big battle, even if they take a worse position at first. Peter?
Yeah, Judith, you mentioned that Fabi is heartbroken. Well, I'm heartbroken. Vincent is heartbroken, yes, because when we look at Vincent's situation also, he was winning in 2 games.
Sorry, I'm playing
and
chess
one
too.
game he just threw away. And now he's in a must-win situation with the black pieces. And I just want to highlight the following after E4, F5, F3, the move that got question mark by the computer, because this is a very solid move. White is not playing for an advantage, but Vincent thinks like, I'm in a must-win situation, and he played the move that if I ask him which move is the worst possible move in the position, that's the move that Vincent played. Yeah, that just tells you the state of mind that he is, because he knows that he, first of all, he has to fight. I don't think that he has forgiven himself missing all those chances and push the pawn to F4. This is complete disqualification. Yeah, this is what he will tell you. But he's in desperate state of mind. He needs to fight, forget about objectivity, forget about everything. And white gets the center. So everything is played out of anger from black. A4, D6, I'm not going to comment on the quality of the move. C6, knight F2. Another question mark, but a very logical move from Nodirbek that you want to activate that knight from the corner. Going to D3, E5, knight D3, bishop C7. Computer is critical about many moves. Let's not go into depths of this. It's more about the battle. Yeah, and after this queen d2, ed4, bishop d4, knight e6, bishop f2, we got a game that Vincent probably was hoping for, that yes, objectively I'm worse, objectively white is better, but I have nothing to lose. I will try my chances. And I feel like very much the same narrative is also happening in the grand final between Fabiano and Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, he tries to a little bit unbalance the game, but it's not so easy. Still, I'm wondering where the king from c8 will be moving, which actually may be going to be moving very fast with queen moves away to f7 or d8, g5 somewhere, and then goes all the way to g8 and try to make some kind of break on the queen side. At the same time, white is also kind of ready to go to g1 with his king and castle there. So it is very hard to imagine how and Fabiano. Magnus plays with color.
Come on,
and
Ari, pull it down.
well, of course, for Fabio also it's very difficult how to unbalance the position, how to unbalance Magnus. Playing in this position, Magnus has a huge development advantage, I believe.
Yes, and just look at what I highlighted, that basically black hasn't touched the center at all. And we all know, everybody was taught that, yeah, what is the aim of a chess game? Try to control the center. Well, but Magnus played with f4, f5 and c3, a super professional move. It just says that, you know what, I'm opening up my bishops. The b1 bishop on g1 is in the game immediately. I don't really want to be better, but I want to make sure that you get zero counterplay. And that kind of forced Fabiano, just like Vincent, to start going on some adventure that otherwise they would never ever start, with the move a5, knight g3, g6, e4. Magnus immediately grabs the center, enjoys life, takes, knight f7, knight e3, a4. I was telling to Judith that, please, Fabi, just push that pawn to a4. At least I want this pawn to be on a4, because this gives some little hope, some life for the position, for all the other problems that we created for ourselves. Bishop c2 and knight h6, another very sad move. That where is this knight going? Normally we tell that no, the knight should go towards the center. This knight started its journey from h8. It's outplayed completely out of desperation.
Yes, exactly. That's what we see. And we are talking about it, how difficult it is to bounce back and to play this exact game for Fabiano. And for me, the biggest question is whether can we believe that Fabi believes the fact that he can win this game. So I'm throwing it back to you with the question that, do you think Fabiano believes himself that he is capable of grabbing this game? Let's say if he has a winning position.
Okay, giving him a winning position, I believe. I think if he finds it, that might be some renewed energy for him. I believe in Fabiano and his ability, but I think your point is exactly right. It's about whether or not he himself believes that he has enough left in the tank, that given the winning position he gave away in the last round, if there's any fight remaining.
It's what we just spoke about, right? With everything that just happened, you could be the side that's on the winning position. You could be the one hunting for the point, but it's you who is unsafe against Magnus Carlsen. That's what we just saw being played out. Looking at Fabi in the pre-discussions, looking at him right now, Judith, to answer your question, I think he's struggling to find that belief. And then when we go into the position itself, David, just what Magnus has created with this last move itself as well, gaining more space, the pawns, the mobility, knight on h6, absolutely stuck for Magnus. Knights in the center looking great. I don't see how in this position he'll even have that chance to find the moment to believe in himself.
Yeah, fully agreed. It's still early days, but the early signs have not been good. The Black Knight now, stuck on the edge of the board. It was aiming to come into f5. we talk about mindset, about Fabiano, but for Magnus, G4 took him a while, but a sign of confidence that he's happy to expand, willing to push forward. If not, he might have just kind of kept his pawn on G3, pushed D4 and said, okay, come at me. But he wants to take the space. He knows his queen can come out anytime. He knows he's going to kick back this black knight. I mean, black's so slow in terms of development here. Fabiano tries to speed that up by breaking out in the center, but that also weakens some squares, some dark squares. If Magnus now gets his knight out of the way and gets another tempo to play the pawn to d4, which we've been calling for ages, then the e7 pawn is backward for life, and there will be weaknesses. So where is the knight going? That's the first question for Magnus. But okay, at least Fabi's coming forward now. At least he's trying to say it's not going to be a one-sided battle here.
Launching a bit of an attack. Do you retreat? 2 ways forward for the knight here, left or right.
Very tempting to go towards the king, but the first question then that comes to mind is that what happens if black keeps pursuing that knight with the move like pawn to b6, forcing you to go back, and have you just provoked weaknesses in Fabi's camp with that? Come back to go to that e5 square. This last move that Fabi has made, creates a nice post for the knight at the center of the board, and it has a direct route to it.
Could you also just take the a4 pawn then instead of...
Yeah,
right? Or no, the queen's hitting it as well.
It is attacked twice, and this, I mean, it's not a game ender, but black suddenly would get two pieces.
Well, there you go. That would be the position Fabi needs, I think, to start believing again.
But will it be enough?
Magnus wouldn't give that to him. Yeah, Magnus wouldn't give that to him.
That's the thing, right? How many chances do you get against Magnus? And the kind of chance that Fabi got in the last game, it's not just about a positional grind where you're strategically better. It was absolutely winning.
Yeah, it was knockout. It was pretty much checkmate or free material. But
apparently not.
Yeah, I guess 1 in every 100 times
so you
win those
never
positions.
resign.
Just hoping that this is maybe the few percentage times that you might win this game with black.
Yeah. And imagine how difficult it is to overcome when that 1 in 100 times happens to be when the stage is a world championship title.
Yeah, it's the nerves. Mindset, we've spoken about it. Just imagine how difficult it must be for the players in that arena to fully focus, to find their best form and to maintain their best form throughout long games here. And d5, I would say maybe this move is the most natural just because it can't be kicked away. Going the other way, as Tanya said, though, is a perfect circuit. And there we go. Magnus spots it. He wants to come back around to an outpost. Good move.
So yeah, long journey for this knight, but a happy journey.
And also kicking that knight out of there would potentially create long-term weaknesses in Fabi's camp as well. So it's not an easy decision to make. And how long can you let the knight even live there? I don't know if you have the option to try to trade it off with knight e6. It feels like LPDO, loose pieces drop off. There might be tactics involved with the queen lined up on the E line as well.
Yeah, something along this line, just to put it on the board, the knight coming into e6. I mean, there are questions about whether this pawn is hanging.
Yeah.
Bar shoots up.
Something's just very losing there.
I assume it's, well...
Maybe just knight takes pawn, and then knight takes another pawn.
Hitting this knight in the center, and you can get away with capturing here with a check. And next move, you can gobble back this knight and say, okay, 2-pawn advantage. So not quite able to trade off this knight yet. I wonder whether Fabiano was hoping to blow open the center, but that rarely happens when, as Peter highlighted, black has so many pieces on the back rank. Action rarely pays off. Tactics will not work in black's favor if he's not ready.
If you're Fabi here, do you want to throw in the a3?
I think he will.
Quite possibly. Oh, I thought maybe he was about to reach for it. Instead, the hand goes to the head. And now, for a piece, he's going to opt just for that b6 push, try to kick the knight back.
But the knight wants to go there anyway.
Right.
It's headed to that central post.
It's beautiful, eternal outpost. It can only really be removed by an enemy piece, bishop or knight, but it will be replaced by a strong pawn.
Where's Fabi's hope? Where do you create the chaos here? Where do you create your chances if you're black in a must-win game?
I think typically you wait for a mistake. That's really what it is. It's setting yourself up reactively for that one opening, that one mistake that your opponent gives you. We've seen it plenty in freestyle chess. It's the counterattack.
And he's going to wait. I like this last move from Fabiano. Patient. At first, I thought maybe he'd push 2 squares forward, but just too airy for his king. So he keeps everything covered. For now, at least the knight coming into the center could, at the very least, be chopped off the board. The game goes on. I'm expecting Magnus to actually bring his queen out, maybe hit the knight, and sooner or later, castle his king, bring his rook on over, and finish development there.
And it's not so easy to imagine Fabi's king feeling so safe, right? If you manage to get it all the way to the right side, firstly, massive clearance needed for that. Is it even feeling happy there with the pawns moving forward? I think not. On the other flank as well, Fabi has committed with pawn moves himself, creating some potential long-term weaknesses on diagonals and the knights jumping forward. It again has the makings where Fabi's king might find itself in danger in the middle game.
And the way to beat Magnus, as we showed in the previous game, or he almost showed in the previous game, is to get Magnus's king out in the open. Like the few times Magnus loses, it's because he neglects his own king safety. But here, White's king looks beautifully protected. Nice sanctuary with the bishop in front of it as well.
Magnus surviving that last game, it makes me feel that the guy just never loses. It's impossible to beat Magnus Carlsen.
It nearly is, right? You see it so rarely. We saw it once in the group stage here at this very event. But then he bounces back, still finishes number 1 in the overall round robin. So,
no sweat.
what are you going to say about that? And then, time and time again, in definitive losing situations, he manufactures miracles.
The whole conversation about GOAT of chess, greatest of all time,
Is it still a conversation?
Magnus, exactly. And I think it's actually zoomed out of that. I think it's not even about being the greatest chess player. Is Magnus Carlsen one of the greatest athletes of all times?
Yeah, the dominance has been real. And it's the gears. I talk about it a lot, but I mean, certain grandmasters, they can keep up with Magnus. Give them a game, they can hold it. Give them a position, they can occasionally outplay him. But to do it over a longer tournament, to do it every single game, day in, day out, he was far from his best at the World Rapid recently. Still won that title. Far, far from his best at the World Blitz, knocking over pieces, nervous, shaking, still won that title. Here, I wouldn't say he's been at his best so far today, or maybe Fabi's been so good that he hasn't given Magnus a chance to look at his best, but somehow the results still stack up in his favor. It's incredible. Just to get the job done when you're not feeling 100%, that is the sign of a true champion.
As chat says, right? The second strongest player in the world is an out-of-form Magnus Carlsen.
Okay.
Magnus really pausing in consideration here. I mean, again, it just feels like there's so many good moves in the position. Maybe that's what's, causing the think.
Yeah,
there's not one obvious move. You could go, we've talked about A3 for Fabi. Okay, as I say that, he's not going to look to deny that opportunity away from Fabi. And hey, look at that. The first glimmer,
maybe,
if anything.
Maybe. This just the start, of course, but Magnus spent a long time on that. And to my eyes, it's a sense that it kind of gives away that Magnus isn't enjoying the tension. Like, he has a totally fine position. He could have castled, brought his rook on over. He could have moved his queen out anywhere. But he wants to resolve the tension. He wants to get a position he knows he can guide towards a draw. And he wants to do it quickly. So psychologically, I think maybe just as much as this move might not be the best objectively, I think psychologically a first hint that Magnus smells the finishing line. He's got his eyes on the prize. For Fabi, though, he needs to take advantage. I don't think he should be taking this pawn. I think that would only help Magnus take back with the knight, for example, open up the bishop on an undefended pawn, and more pieces coming off the board. White is closer to safety. So just sit, improve your pieces, and hope that Magnus continues making rash decisions like that.
Feels like a great practical decision, though, right? To that point, you try to trade off as much as you can, get yourself closer to that finishing line. The ball's in Fabi's court to try to create something. He's the one who has to make things happen.
Yeah, it seems super logical to me. You're cutting off a square that both the light squared bishop or the knight would maybe be happy to jump to in an attempt to develop, as you say, and improve the position. That's not an option unless we get this pawn out of the way. Again, we still have a knight stuck on the rim over on h6. but there's no clear way for that to get into the game.
That just dogged me.
Also, where is Fabi's king going again?
Oh, I
That
made a
becomes the big
mistake on
question.
it.
Till that king is in the way, you can't really complete your development. It might be the only way, as you're pointing out. Get that king up, give up your right to castle, and try to play that middle game out.
Provoke Magnus as well. Magnus won by moving his king out into the center first. Why not lead from the front? At some point, the bishop will need to step forward. The king will need to step forward. Like, you got to clear the back rank. That's how just chess works. You need to mobilize the pieces. I don't think Magnus has a threat. At least I can't see one. The queen can hit the knight. The knight will step back, and it's fine. Magnus doesn't really want to take this pawn away from the center, giving black a central majority. So I think he should wait, Fabiano. Just find some piece.
But find it fast.
Yeah. Whether it's a king move, a bishop move, something. Don't spend 3 minutes and then release the tension. That would be my advice.
Yeah, playing faster on the clock earlier in this round. Now he's the one who's down nearly 3 minutes on the clock here as he approaches 8 minutes to his name. His heart rate has calmed quite a bit. Don't know if that's resignation, or finally having gotten control of his own emotions.
Yeah, the longer this game goes on and the longer he feels like his position is okay-ish, everything's covered, not down in material, I think the more he will forget about the previous game. The adrenaline will start pumping. He'll be able to lock in, go in the flow, that flow state.
And hopefully by then, there'll be a position left to play. Something where you can still create your chances. Again, I'm a bit worried about the clock situation right now for Fabi. He needs to pace up. It's just the start of this game. Even if the chances come, he'll need enough time to cash in on that.
Yeah, only 11 moves in so far, but Fabiano is deciding that this is the time where the clock and the time should be spent. So while he gives that think, we're going to check in one more time, one final time with our Make.com match metrics as we go over to the third place matchup to see how that one has progressed. As you can see here, everybody's sporting about as we've expected and what we've seen from them so far through the tournament. The two youngsters a little bit heavier in the heartbeats and triple digits from the accuracies. Everybody's playing this position fairly solidly, but perhaps a little bit more carefree when it comes to the third place match. As we arrive there, we can evaluate the position. How's Vincent Keimer doing in his quest to strike back in the third place matchup?
I must admit, I really like what Vincent's been doing. Objectively, still fine, looks level, looks balanced, but I would be scared here, Nodebek. The black queen is lurking nearby, the black rook also hinting at an attack. The black bishop, if it can ever get onto the diagonal that the king sits on, will help create some mating threats. But for now, the white knight is holding everything together. Nodebek has one great piece on an outpost. Tanya, I do see the makings of some kind of comeback here, though. Some kind of attack for Vincent Keimer.
Yeah, you see that queen and rook beautifully placed as well. The f4 pawn that you highlighted with the e3 square. If the knight is able to just find its way there, knight d4, knight f5, knight e3 is a path that's available to you. It feels like Nodebek has spent too much time on the left flank, and Vincent, he's creating his chances on the other side despite the symmetrical pawn structure, 3 versus 3, 3 versus 3. I agree with you, but still a far way off.
Still a far way off, and White's idea might likely be on the next move to try and trade off the queens, especially if the black rook ever moves. I realized a queen trade might be guaranteed if Vincent doesn't want to go down on material. So I think he needs to keep the queens on, needs to go for checkmate against the white king. Not going to be easy, but there's enough pieces left for now. Retreats his bishop. Very logical.
Yeah, just keeping the pieces defended, and we'll try to find a way in with his knight. Queen f2, I definitely think he denies the trade. You need to win. You keep the queens on. Nodebek up on the clock as well.
Yeah, just ever so slightly. Onus on him to make the next move.
What to do with white? Queens off. I think he's very safe for the rest of this game, Nodebek. But if he can't get the queens off, this rook looks silly. The other rook needs to mobilize. The king maybe needs to hide in the corner.
Maybe you just take a timeout and reroute that rook. Bring it back, bring it to the center file, improve the position of your pieces.
He does have time. Vincent, in the meantime, might be trying to bring his other rook, swing it across. Takes a few moves, but that would be a deadly attack.
Yeah, the other idea I have to try and accomplish the same thing you're talking about, Tanya, is we just push the c-pawn to c3, open up that lateral.
Earn an MSN without a bachelor's degree in nursing. Western U's 2-year entry-level master's program takes you all the way through licensure. and you're ready to start practicing when you graduate. Click to learn.
Port change. And then the white rook will occupy one of the open lines.
That's very nice. Very controlled play. Prophylactic thinking, stopping that knight maneuver, keeping things under control. And now you don't even need to reroute the rook. The rook is beautifully placed already.
I wouldn't have got there if you didn't say that that was the intention.
But that's how chess players work. If there's no calculation to be done, no forcing moves, checks, captures, threats, then improve the worst place piece.
I mean, how often do you say, if I could just pick it up and put it anywhere, right? That's been one of the most useful things for me in evolving my chess play is, okay, where does this piece want to be? All right, now what's the best, safest, or fastest way to get it there?
The drag and drop technique.
Yes.
I'd love to put it on the square.
A new variant of chess.
Exactly. But it will take a while. Vincent down to 8 minutes now. And yeah, this one, a quieter game for now. I think the championship match might be where the action's at right now.
And that's exactly where we're heading, because only a couple moves have been made since we left there, but Fabiano gave a good think. We wondered, how was he going to respond to the tension that Magnus had introduced with that F-pawn push? And it's 2 knight moves in a row, trying to better that knight that was previously on the H-file and on the rim.
The only piece that Fabiano Caruana has moved has been that knight. He's moved it 4 times. From the edge of the board, if we just mark the route that it's had, David, just the way you're highlighting, nothing else has gone back and forth, find itself at the center, but is it even stable there? If this is how your opening play is, you get the feeling that Fabi is very uncomfortable with his position right now.
I mean, he's purely trying to confuse Magnus. These moves make, well, very little logical sense, especially because the knight is hit. That's the 5th time it's moved.
I'm so baffled.
Piece development is the first thing, one of the first things we're taught in chess.
And look at the square it's moved back to. You know, you get that knight and place it somewhere juicy, I'd still get it. From H8, it's gone all the way to D7, made 5 moves to get there. And what's it even doing?
I mean, that one the most logical of the last 3, just because it was hit by the pawn, so it had to go somewhere.
I really don't understand what he's trying to achieve at the moment. Maybe he was trying to provoke this pawn forward so he can hit at some point in the center, break out. This just can't work. You can't break this many opening principles and hope to have a level position. I think it's just purely the match. He's also playing tactically. This pawn cannot be captured right now because he's lured the white knight onto a square. It would be hit twice. But Magnus has completed development. He's castled. He's moved his 2 knights, moved to bishop, rook centralized. So far ahead in development.
I mean, you got to throw in A3 at some point. Magnus is just going to forget about it, right? He'll just push his pawn, block that side, and then say, fine, you've made so many pawn moves. Where's your assist to the attack? Nothing's playing for Fabi. Just look at the pieces.
No, and there's nowhere for them to go at this point. Like, his knight can't get off the back rank except for going to B7.
Mm-hmm.
That feels terrible.
Yeah, loses control over some key squares in the center.
His rooks have such a difficult time getting into the game.
Yeah, his king feels a bit airy. His queen suffocated.
And just think back and look back. Every game that Fabi has played in this match, apart from this one, there's been so much activity by him. You know, getting the G4s in early on, getting the pawn breaks with black as quickly as possible. And this has been a completely different Caruana.
Yeah, so often finding harmony in the position and with his pieces. This time it's disharmony all over the board.
Yeah, this is tough. When Fabi's at his best, the moves flow. Like this energy, like this relentless tactical vision that he showed actually most of that previous game, all of this World Championship final until the closing stages there. But it was also so classical. He's got classical training. He knows where to put his pieces. And then he's got that added spark, but this feels unorthodox. It's not really his style. As we see a pawn capture, and now Magnus is sport for choice, which way to take back. I think most likely he'll take with a pawn, even though it's isolated, just to stop black from breaking out. Any en passants there would be very, very nice for Magnus. There we go, takes with a pawn. What to do? Again, hard to find moves, Tanya, hard to find activity for black.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what plans, except maybe more knight moves to try to get that into the game. I can imagine one knight landing on D6, the other landing on F6. The only square I see for Fabi is that E4 point. Maybe get there, but it takes so many moves, David. And meanwhile, Magnus has all his forces ready. You know, bishop F2, bishop H4, knight H5 coming in. Well, knight h5 after you defend it. Queen e2, knight h5. Get that knight in, get that bishop in.
I'm really surprised Fabiano hasn't thrown in this move. He needs to do it sooner or later. If Magnus gets a timeout, I think Magnus would love to actually block this pawn just to pin down the black rook to defend on a4. You might as well, having invested 2 tempi, if the black rook isn't lifting, might as well just plant it. Hope that later you get some miracle attack against the white king.
It just feels like every plan that Fabi has is so slow. I'm looking at queen e2, but Magnus can also put it on the h4 square with similar ideas. You know, the rook landing up on this... It's just not looking good. Rook landing up on the g line eventually. I'm just seeing pluses in white's position and none for black.
It's tough. I think he just needs to go into survival mode, Fabi. Hope that both players drop down low on time. Hope that Magnus still doesn't have a knockout blow and do exactly what Magnus did to him. Just keep the game going and going, frustrating him, and maybe a chance will appear. You never know. He has to play practical, though. He cannot afford to be low on time. We've seen that doesn't tend to work out well for Fabiano. He needs to keep something in the bank just in case he gets a chance. Just in case.
That ship has sailed, right? He's now under 4 minutes on the clock and a worse position out of the opening.
We call that turtling up in the League of Legends space.
Ooh, turtling up.
Gotta just get inside your shell and wait for that moment to pop out.
Exactly. It's a good strategy in chess too, but it's not talked about so much. And there we go. The bishop does move, but that does leave a pawn hanging, maybe later on the side of the board.
Yeah, Magnus is going to target that. He's going to bring his queen out. He loves doing it. What better time? You put your rook on e1, you're also targeting the e7 pawn after that.
Yeah, there's no good moves in a bad position. That's what they say. And unfortunately, just really cramped. Hard to know what's coming next for Fabiano, but he needs to turtle up, put a bishop here, get his king off the back rank, move his knight, and hope.
Maybe not exactly a turtle up strategy, but is e5 the kind of break that perhaps Fabi can be dreaming about in certain positions?
Yeah, that's the thing. To equalize, I would say yes. To win a game, it might be difficult. En passant there, it will be symmetrical pawn structure. White might even win a pawn. And I don't know, it's maybe something he's thinking about, but to win is going to be a whole nother matter. Magnus looks pretty calm for now. 5 minutes and a half against just under 4 minutes. Crunch time coming. Still all the pieces on the board, only 2 pawns traded off. That's the plus side for Fabiano right now.
Queen h4 is such a Magnus-esque move in this position, but he's really taking his time. And I'm slightly surprised. I wonder what else he's got on his mind. Does he want to reroute the knight via g4 to e5? Is that a plan that he's thinking about?
Oh, I like that as well. But there we go. Magnus, practical decision. I really think Fabiano should have just planted his pawn on a3, whether good or not, just in case for later tactics. But now the white king's always going to be safe here in the corner. The black rook's always going to be tied down to this weak pawn. Fabiano, I think, may be getting his priorities slightly wrong there. But okay, he's got the g-file. One piece has moved. Still not off the back rank, but at least slightly more active. No threats, though, apart from this one. Rook takes bishop.
Ooh.
And this knight then would fall. Okay, small trap, but Magnus might see that one. That might encourage him to park his queen on the side and defend the knight.
That'll start rerouting his knight one more time towards the center, but I really like the move queen to h4. You know, you're hitting on h7, you're defending your pieces, you're opening up another square for your rook to line up against the black queen.
He hasn't played it for a while. It was attractive for the last 7-8 moves for Magnus to put his queen on h4, but he keeps resisting.
Something about it that he doesn't like.
Okay, 4 minutes. Fabiano's done a good job of getting to this point after the opening.
The thing is, even if this comes down to both players under a minute, then we can expect anything to happen, even in a position like this. So for Fabi, if he can get Magnus in a time scramble, that might be his big hope. Magnus rerouting, but not happy with the decision, struggling a little bit.
Yeah, I think Magnus is fine with the moves. It's the clock. Magnus, he mentioned it in an interview yesterday, slower than he's used to being. A bit of indecision. Surely he's feeling nervous. That's the thing when you play chess. Like, yes, it's easy, natural to be nervous yourself, but you've got to remember the opponent also has feelings and emotions. And Magnus, okay, he goes back, but at least now maybe he's going this way later. He's very flexible. He doesn't have to do anything special.
Yeah. Fabi needs to continue developing his pieces. He has to find a way to plant his own knight on that e4 square, the only outpost that he has in this position. It takes a while, but he's got to do it. He starts with improving his bishop, comes with the tempo, hits the rook slides up, and finally the pieces start coming out.
Pieces are coming. Maybe a knight on d6 would be well placed. Maybe the knight can go to g5 and then later into some central squares. Okay, great decision. Fabi sped up there. Magnus still yet to release the tension, yet to trade off more pieces. Computer, the evaluation bar says big advantage for white, but in practical terms, this is still a really tense battle.
You look at Magnus, and at least visually, it doesn't look like he feels he has a big advantage in this position. He's not looking as relaxed as he usually does.
Exactly. He knows he's been not quite at his peak yet. So he will only relax when that handshake happens, if it happens, in his favor.
And we know he'll be satisfied with nothing less than a world title.
The one that he has never claimed so far. He has tried. Back when it was Fischer Random World Championship, he lost a couple of matches, 2019, 2022, very painfully.
Once in the finals, once in the semifinals.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering, going with the mat strategy, trade off as many pieces, is it time for him to challenge that rook on the G line? It's an active piece for Fabiano. You know, get one of your less active pieces off the board. Rook G2.
Makes a lot of sense. Very logical, very safe looking. I would play that as well, Tanya. I would not want to mess around too much if I were Magnus. Maybe he's also thinking about coming forward with his knight, but again, there are tactics. Got to be careful.
Easy trick to miss that one. Knight f4, you'd lose 2 minor pieces for a rook. That's the exact opportunity that Fabi is looking for. Magnus, he's so incredibly slow right now. You know, rook g2, it's not blundering anything. Feels like a simple move.
Why is he thinking? He spent half his time on this one move, and then, okay, the knight goes over to b4, small inaccuracy.
That looks good. You're hitting the pawn on c6. It gets the question mark. It's a one-move threat. And I think black can simply get the knight out of the way, as he does, connect the queen, and also, again, eyeing that e4 square with the other knight about to jump to d6. And Magnus Carlsen finally, but surely, strikes in the center. A decision must be made now by Fabi. Pawn takes pawn, a big threat.
Sorry.
All good.
That's fine.
See some more tension. Yep, sitting here on the board. I mean, equal clocks here. Fabiano, this is maybe the most out of tension he's been throughout this entire game.
I like that the clocks have paced out, you know, James. That now it's Fabi with just a couple of extra seconds, but at least it's a scramble that's coming up. And, you know, that's when blunders happen. We've seen the big turnarounds when we're talking gameplay under a minute.
And call me crazy, but I actually like seeing the heart rate back in the triple digits here for Fabi. Earlier in the game, when he had dipped down into the 70s, 80s, that to me felt a bit like resignation, a bit like I was stewing in the previous game. Now, my blood's pumping again. Maybe there is something I can do here with the clocks being a little bit more equal, with the fact that Magnus hasn't necessarily turned what looked like a very pretty, you know, early and mid game into an overall solid advantage. There's still fighting chances. It's still uphill.
Ooh, and that was a big moment. That was the only good move in the position for black. He needed to eliminate this attacking piece. The knight was threatening too much. And if he does take it, Tanya, suddenly the A-pawn might move, motor forward, suddenly counterplay. He's holding it together.
Comes in with quite an idea. Fabi does. Now under 2.5 minutes. And how is Magnus going to respond to that? Does he just say, I'm going to bail out, not allowing you the trade, comes back, admits the mistake in his plan? Still keeps the tension at the center of the board. I would not want to allow bishop takes knight on a3, opening up the A-line with the king on c1. No safety on the other side of the board as well. Magnus Carlsen, clock is ticking.
This is the best position Fabiano's had in ages. He needs to just stay alive. Turtle chess.
This is suddenly getting fun.
Okay, time advantage for black. Extra 30 seconds.
And I'll point out another idea that Fabi set up. That knight, which has been horsing around, can actually even get to g5 and then eye the e4 square and the aeration into Magnus's camp.
Ooh, the knight goes back. Magnus has messed around with that knight quite a lot. It came forward to f4, back to d3. b4, back to d3. Magnus is showing some signs of weakness here. Fabi needs to pounce. I agree with you, Tanya. Now is the time to change the pace. No more defensive moves. No. Come forward.
He does. He hits the rook.
There it is.
Okay, maybe the other knight was better to get into that square. D5 now slightly loose once the white rook does move. Only one safe square, unless Magnus wants to sacrifice material.
Again, he's slowing down. He's looking at pawn takes pawn, thinking about it, but that's a big risk in this match situation that Magnus is in if he gives up that exchange on D2.
Wow, there's no reason to risk it for Magnus, but he's tempted. He's down to just over a minute. He wants to give up the exchange. He loves giving up material, but nope. He keeps his rook on the board. Now, problems for Fabiano. There's an undermining of the pawn in the center here. Not too comfortable. Black is really weak on the light squares, Tanya.
This is getting extremely tense. And for both players, barely any time on the clock. Fabi trying to calculate, the calculation beast, as he's known. Rook takes rook. Does that work out? The pawn on c4 hanging, or does he keep the tension by blocking the G line, keeping more pieces on the board? Get that knight to the center of the board, but d5 is soft. Very tough position to play out with a minute and a half on the clock.
It's a race against time. What to do for Fabiano? One of the best moves might even to be good, going back with the knight, back where it came from. Small slip. He could have used the other knight. If he could just improve this one piece, he'd be right in it.
But look at Magnus, David. It feels like he's getting a bit nervous right now.
For sure. He is human. He might be the GOAT, but he's also part human.
A very small part. If Magnus Carlsen is human.
Okay, Fabiano needs to decide. He's about to dip under 1 minute. He goes forward with his knight. That is a risk, but he does have threats. Knight into f3 would attack several pieces at once.
It does. It hits the queen, it hits the bishop, it hits the rook on g2. Does Magnus have enough time to take that pawn on d5? The white queen doesn't have too many squares.
Ooh, this is really tricky now. Magnus at 1 minute.
There's one big move for Magnus to find to keep pressing his advantage. Had knight jumping forward, e5.
That's not obvious. I'm going to say that's not easy.
No.
There must be a temptation to take this pawn in the center. That would backfire. That actually only helps black. But jumping in, that covers the square, forces some favorable exchanges.
And the reason that it's hard to make that move is because you're looking at the bishop trade and the forcing line of the knight moving forward to f3 anyway. And what that does is gives the white queen the square on b4 to escape if the trade was to happen. Will Magnus find it?
Chrono 24 reminding him that he's got to keep track of his time there. 25 seconds on the clock.
Oh my goodness.
Magnus Carlsen, he's had an edge this entire time. He does go for the pawn trade.
And Fabi steps in.
Fabi's quick to capitalize on it. He's jumped in with the knight to f3.
Game on. That queen is almost trapped. There is real tension now. Magnus might have to sacrifice some material, give up his rook for this power.
Taking every opportunity to evolve your vision while you never lose your...
For the white queen, notice how the light squared bishop that will x-rayed, whereas Magnus is about to go down in exchange.
He's got to take that knight. Only move.
Only move in the position. And then go for that c6 pawn. Does Magnus believe in that?
Doesn't find it.
Oh my goodness, Fabi winning for the second time in this match.
Fabiano can win material now if he's accurate with this knight jump. As Tanya said, X-ray vision on the queen. He can jump his knight out the way. Whoa, it misses the opportunity.
Moves just a little too quick with some time on the clock.
Knight fd2 was a winning move, taking this rook. And at the end, this bishop on g1 would have fallen. Now queen's coming off. Fabi's still fine, he's still in it. But it's going to be harder to win with queens off.
And what a moment that was. You see, you see the motifs on the board. You see the bishop lined up against the queen. Why didn't Fabi just take an extra few seconds there?
He had over a minute.
It feels like he got caught up in the emotion of the previous two moves, right? Feeling, okay, I'm back in it now, and started to just play towards that pace, when really that's the moment he needed to take that extra breath, play more at the pace he had approached the rest of the game with.
That's where the tension comes in. That move, knight to d2, would have won material, won the rook, won the bishop, and would have given him an opportunity to take this game and to take this match into tiebreaks.
The amount of chances that Magnus has actually given Fabi in this match. Unreal. And we see the trades happen. Over. Fabi will jump in with the knight, hits the rook. Doesn't have too many square. You can step up one square, hit that knight on d2, counter pressure.
He needs to move the rook.
Well, I thought Carlsen was about to just start
F2 or d1, two options.
He's already once moved into the eye line of that bishop earlier with his queen and should have paid a heavy price. Would he get one more chance? Fabiano Caruana. Rook steps forward. He can repeat the position, but probably no more than that.
No. Repetition not enough here for Fabiano. He still needs to push this to a win. One of his best positions in this game so far, aside from that one winning opportunity.
Yeah, but maybe the best line forward indeed is to just repeat it now. You are down a pawn in the center of the board, but that's just something the mat situation doesn't allow. And when that's the case, how do you go into a queen trade?
15 seconds.
Make a move.
He takes the bishop.
He leaps in.
The gamble, calculated risk, but now white still up a pawn, hitting this one. A white knight is leaping into f4, and the black knight is almost trapped. Not many ways home for it.
Yeah, try as he might. He's running out of options now, running out of pieces as well.
Running out of pieces, pawns, and time. Magnus Carlsen so close to his first Fisher Random, his first freestyle chess world championship title.
And now it's a position Magnus can control. It's not chaotic anymore. That's the issue. Black has the 2 bishops, so some chances, but black also has a problem piece. The knight, the bishop as well, also hit. Weak pawns all over the place, and they're playing without a rook.
And the white knight ready to jump onto the center of the board to attack exactly that weakness. You are playing down a rook as well, as you're pointing out. Complete miscoordination in Fabi's pieces. And he had one golden opportunity. Missed it.
Well, Magnus goes forward. That is a very professional move. Tries to eliminate as many pieces as possible. Bishop pair for black.
Bishop pair is, yeah, maybe where your hopes lie.
But weak pawns. Weak pawns for black. King goes forward. The white
flies king already here for white.
Yeah.
The rook is coming.
Rook is coming. Threats of the f pawn moving forward. The h7 pawn being weak, which would give white an outside passer. I mean, Magnus moves forward with his king in the middle game. I mean, this is an end game we're talking about.
He's just one move too slow, Fabiano. He wishes his pawn was on a3. He could have played that move so many times earlier. Now the black king can move out the way. The black rook can come and challenge the g-file.
5 seconds to make a move.
The pawn is hanging. Goes forward, b5.
And shakes his head. He knows that's not a great decision. Finally gets the rook into the game.
Comes the rook.
We've been here before. It's a Magnus grind. Magnus is the one with the threats.
Yeah, he needs only a draw. The white knight can at any time reroute itself to those central squares via d3, forcing that bishop pair off the board.
There are pawns that can be attacked as well. Love that move, Tanya. Knight to d3, control. That black bishop is so sad now, locked on the back rank.
You would love to find it now.
Yeah. Magnus
reaches for a pawn instead. He's going to march forward.
f7, big threat.
Computer's not the biggest fan.
Fabiano, it's resign time. Unless he plays rook to f8, there we go. He finds it. Still some tension. Still some pressure on the f-file. Let's ignore that question mark. It was a great move.
It looks incredibly scary, with white also having the option of checking the black king with his own bishop.
But suddenly tactics, and Magnus has to calculate with only 20 seconds left.
Yeah, his best option is still to find Tanya's move, knight to d3.
Ooh. That is difficult now. That is based on the fact that black isn't actually threatening to take this pawn, since the black rook needs to defend its bishop, getting the knight out of dodge, out of the way there. Difficult. He's going for the bishop instead. More natural. That's a check.
I like it. Ooh. King goes back.
The wrong way.
What should he have done instead?
He needed to go the other way. That would have been difficult.
He's come up to c6.
Oh, 5 seconds for Magnus, though.
Magnus takes the pawn. That loses the advantage, but does force more exchanges. Magnus just wants a rook endgame that he can control. A draw is enough.
Exactly.
Yeah, everything's going to come off the board. The bishop and the knight then, and then that pawn on f6 with a check will fall, but it will be enough to get Magnus Carlsen the draw. And Fabi knows it. That's why he keeps thinking. 8 seconds now. Takes the bishop. Will take the knight next.
Takes the pawn. He'd rather fight a pawn down, but at least with the imbalance of a bishop versus a knight. He could have taken the knight. It would have ended in a draw most likely.
Magnus Carlsen, up a pawn.
Where's he going with the rook? Is he going to go behind?
6 seconds, he keeps thinking. He might even just offer a draw here.
Yeah, he wants to play. He wants that world title
Why
so badly.
offer a draw?
That's a good move as well. But now Magnus is just going to simplify, trade all the pawns off the board. This might be the last stages of this world championship match. He takes a pawn. He keeps his bishop alive. But Magnus is clearing the board, cleaning it up, going for the draw.
Yeah, and still with a pawn advantage.
Apologies for my cat. My mom's taking a bath, and he does not allow it.
And I can come back around. There we go. Again, professional from Magnus. So close now.
Yeah, he's pissed.
It's the one lost chance.
pawn.
I'd be
Trade
pissed if
that
I
one
was
back
Fabio.
with the rook. Or with the rather, rook slides up for a check, cleaning up that a3 pawn.
Can't explain how much I hate
It's
this
going to be a
view,
dead drawn
though.
endgame.
There it is. In the battle against Fabiano Caruana, Magnus comes out on top and takes his 21st world title. The
Yeah,
king
he's an
claims
animal.
another crown. Magnus
The
Carlsen
goat,
is
the
your
king.
2026 FIDE Freestyle
The man, the
Chess
myth, the
World
legend.
Champion.
Just incredible. And it wasn't easy, but Magnus snatched it. He took it when it mattered the most, how he came back in round 3, how he never lost control
wild.
in round 4. And at the end of it, Magnus Carlsen
Dude was
always
built for
arrives.
this.
A miracle made in game number 3 to save his chances at that 21st world title. And as you said, David, the one that he had yet to capture is now his.
Yeah, it feels like he's done it all. That was the last infinity stone he needed to collect. The relief is clear, it's
Yeah.
palpable.
He's about
That
to
was
get
one of the
hammered.
most nervy matches you will ever see. Both players wanted it so much. Fabiano Caruana played an excellent tournament this weekend, but it is that man again.
Oh, shut up, he's
Magnus
talking.
Carlsen always seems to emerge victorious and get the job done.
Yeah. It's maybe
Dude,
a
let him
sigh of
talk.
relief,
Shut up.
of course, elation, I'm sure, as well. He was absolutely pressed by Fabiano. He was made to work for it in the end. And as Magnus Carlsen takes that crown, we can go back and relive these final moments across both of our final boards. For Vincent Keimer and Fabiano, they needed a win in order to keep their hopes alive in 3rd and 1st place. But Noterbeck, he'd get it done, just as Magnus Carlsen would. A win means that they end it here and now. Noterbeck is your 3rd place finisher. Magnus Carlsen, your world champion.
Yet
What a
again.
fantastic day of chess this has been. I mean, for Magnus
All
Carlsen,
right,
it's
man.
clear that,
Mag
you know,
gets it
it's
again.
not
Full
over,
mag.
it's not finished until he says so. And these
Move
last
with
few
Reezuhn.
moments,
We'll
just
catch you.
incredibly flawless play in that end.